This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain Chapter 14. By and by, when we got up, we turned over the truck the gang had stole off of the wreck, and found boots and blankets and clothes, and all sorts of other things, and a lot of books, and a spyglass, and 3 boxes of cigars. We hadn't ever been this rich before in neither of our lives. The cigars was prime. We laid off all the afternoon in the woods talking, and me reading the books, and having a general good time. I told Jim all about what happened inside the wreck and at the ferryboat, and I said these kinds of things was adventures. But he said he didn't want no more adventures. He said that when I went into Texas and he crawled back to get on the raft and found her gone, he nearly died, because he judged it was all up with him any way it could be fixed. For if he didn't get saved he would get drownded, and if he did get saved, whoever saved him would send him back home so as to get the reward, and then Miss Watson would sell him south, sure. Well, he was right. He was most always right. He had an uncommon level head for a nigger. I read considerable to Jim about kings and dukes and earls and such, and how gaudy they dressed, and how much style they put on, and called each other Your Majesty and Your Grace and Your Lordship, and so on, instead of Mister. And Jim's eyes bugged out, and he was interested. He says, "I didn't know they was so many of 'em. I ain't heerd about none of 'em scarcely but old King Sollermun, unless you counts dem kings what's in a pack of cards." "How much do a king git?" "Get?" I says. "Why, they get $1,000 a month if they want it. They can have just as much as they want. Everything belongs to them." "Ain't dat gay? And what they got to do, Huck?" "They don't do nothin'." "Why, how you talk! They just set round." "Naw, is dat so?" "Of course it is. They just sit around, except maybe when there's a war. Then they go to the war. But other times they just lazy around, or go hawking, just hawking and Shh! Did you hear a noise? We skipped out and looked, but it warn't nothing but the flutter of a steamboat's wheel away down, coming round the point, so we come back. "Yes," says I, "and other times when things is dull they fuss with the Parliament, and if everybody don't go just so, they wax their heads off, but mostly they hang around the harem." "Round de which?" "Harem." "What's de harem?" "The place where they keeps his wives. Don't you know about the harem? Solomon had one. He had about 1,000,000 wives." "Why, yes, that's so. I done forgot it. A harem's a boardin' house, I reckon. Most likely dey has rackety times in de nussery. And I reckon de wives quarrels consid'able, and dat crease de racket. Yit dey say Solomon de wisest man dat ever live. I don't take no stock in dat. Because why? Would a wise man want to live in the midst of such a blim-blammin' all de time? No, 'deed he wouldn't. A wise man 'ud take and build a biler factory, and den he could shet down de biler factory when he want a rest." "Well, he was the wisest man anyway, because the widder she told me so her own self." "I don't keer what de widder say. He warn't no wise man nuther. He had some of de dead fetchin'est ways I ever see. Does you know 'bout dat child dat he was gwine to chop in two?" "Yes, the widder told me all about it." "Well, den, warn't dat de beatin'est notion in de world? You jest take and look at it for a minute. Dar's de stump. Dar. Dat's one of de wimmen. Here's you. Dat's the other one. I's Solomon, an' dish yer dollar bill's de chile. Bofe er you claims it. W'at does I do? Does I shin aroun' 'mongst de neighbors an' fin' out which un you de bill do belong to, an' do hand it over to de right one all safe an' soun', de way dat anybody dat had any gumption would? No, I take an' whack de bill in two, an' give half un it to you, an' de yuther half to de yuther 'oman. Dat's de way Solomon wuz gwine ter do wid de chile. Now I wanter ax you, what's de use er dat half a bill? Can't buy nuthin' wid it, an' what use is half a chile? I wouldn't give a dern for a million un um."
"But hang it, Jim, you've clean missed the point. Blame it, you've missed it 1,000 mile."
"Who, me? Go 'long. Don't talk to me 'bout yo' p'ints. I reckon I know sense when I sees it, an' dey ain't no sense in sech doin's ez dat. De 'spute warn't 'bout half a chile. De 'spute was 'bout a whole chile, an' de man dat think he kin settle a 'spute 'bout a whole chile wid a half a chile don't know enough to come in out er de rain. Don't talk to me 'bout Solomon, Huck. I knows him by de back."
"But I tell you, you don't get the point."
"Blame de p'int. I reckon I knows what I knows. An' min' you, de real p'int is down furder. It's down deeper. It lays in de way Solomon wuz raised. You take a man dat's got only one or two chillun. Is dat man gwineter be wasteful of chillun? No, he ain't. He can't 'ford it. He knows how to value um. But you take a man dat's got about 5 million chillun runnin' 'roun' de house, an' it's diffunt. He as soon chop a chile in two as a cat. Dere's plenty more. A chile or two more or less warn't no consequence to Sollermun, dad fetch him."
"I never see such a nigger. If he got a notion in his head once, there wa'n't no gettin' it out agin. He was the most down on Solomon of any nigger I ever see. So I went to talkin' about other kings and let Solomon slide. I told about Louis XVI that got his head cut off in France long time ago, and about his little boy the Dolphin that would have been a king, but they took and shut him up in jail, and some say he died there."
"Poor little chap."
"But some says he got out and got away and come to America."
"Dat's good. But he'll be pooty lonesome. Dey ain't no kings here, is dey, Huck?"
"No."
"Den he can't git no situation. What's he gwine to do?"
"Well, I don't know. Some of them gets on the police, and some of them learns people how to talk French."
"Why, Huck, don't the French people talk the same way we does?"
"No, Jim. You couldn't understand a word they said. Not a single word."
"Well, now, I be ding busted. How do dat come?"
"I don't know, but it's so. I got some of their jabber out of a book. S'pose a man was to come to you and say, 'Parlez-vous Francy?' What would you think?"
"I wouldn't think nothin'. I'd take and bust him over de head. Dat is, if he warn't white. I wouldn't allow no nigger to call me dat."
"Shucks, it ain't callin' you anything. It's only sayin', 'Do you know how to talk French?'"
"Well, den, why couldn't he say it?"
"Why, he is a sayin' it. That's a Frenchman's way of sayin' it."
"Well, it's a blame ridiculous way, an' I don't want to hear no more 'bout it. There ain't no sense in it."
"Looky here, Jim, does a cat talk like we do?"
"No, a cat don't."
"Well, does a cow?"
"No, a cow don't nuther."
"Does a cat talk like a cow, or a cow talk like a cat?"
"No, dey don't."
It's natural and right for 'em to talk different from each other, ain't it?"
"Course."
"And ain't it natural and right for a cat and a cow to talk different from us?"
"Why, most sho'ly it is."
"Well, then, why ain't it natural and right for a Frenchman to talk different from us? You answer me that."
"Is a cat a man, Huck?"
"No."
"Well, den, there ain't no sense in a cat talkin' like a man. Is a cow a man? Or is a cow a cat?"
"No, she ain't either of 'em." Well, den, she ain't got no business to talk like either one of the other of 'em. Is a Frenchman a man?
Yes.
Well, den, dad blame it, why don't he talk like a man? You answer me dat.
I see it weren't no use wasting words. You can't learn a nigger to argue. So I quit. End of chapter.